What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? How is the form? It's Saturday. The championship is officially here. The championship officially starts today. And of course, there's been plenty of build up on the channel leading up to the championship. There's been a preview show. There's obviously been a predictions as well, which certainly went down fairly well. Although certainly a lot of people disagreeing as well, which is always great to see. But yeah, we're going to be here with the 2024 All-Star Football predictions. I didn't do one of these last year, but I think I did do one of these the year before. So what we're going to be doing is predicting who will win All-Stars come the end of the year. Now, obviously, we don't actually find out who wins All-Stars until 2020, until like the end of the year, usually around December. But yeah, we're going to predict basically who's going to have the best, who are going to be the best 15 players that are going to play in the championship this year. Obviously, the league is somewhat factored in as well. And obviously in my last video, I would have went with who I think will win Footballer of the Year, but we will give that a mention once again. So yeah, we're going to be predicting from 1 to 15, goalkeeper, 3, the full back line, the half back line, the midfield, the half forward line, the full forward line. And yeah, I'd be curious to know your opinions in the comments live or even down below as well. Who do you think will end up winning All-Stars come the end of the year? And yeah, obviously with the championship being different, obviously it's the same as what it was last year, but you do see now with the fact there's so many games, there's more opportunities for more players to win All-Stars, which is absolutely great to see, because in previous years, players would have just one game and then, they could have an absolute unbelievable performance, but if their team is knocked out, after 2 games, say in the provincials and then the qualifiers, it's all said and done. So yeah, we're going to be predicting the All-Stars. And I suppose we will start off with the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper is an interesting one. There is a few interesting enough. Rory Beggan is back for Monaghan. I honestly thought that was an April Fool's. I won't lie, because I think the first report I seen of it was on April Fool's Day. I also seen Callum Ford coming back to or Callum Ford. What am I saying? Callum Brown coming back to Derry. I seen Damien Comer going to Kilmacud Crokes, Supermax and Crow Park. We won't get into that. But yeah, look, no, Rory Beggan is back. But in fairness, I won't go with him to win the All-Star. I don't think he will. Mainly just because I don't think Monaghan will progress as far as they did last season. And also, there's no guarantees that he actually plays. I think he will play tomorrow, but will he play beyond that? I'm not sure. So I think it's going to be between a few goalkeepers. Look, Cluxton's going to be in the conversation, no doubt about that. Shane Ryan's going to be in it. Oren Lynch is going to be in the conversation. And I think Sean Patton is actually a bit of a dark horse to potentially get in there as well. Maybe even Noel Morgan is not a bad show. I think he's a very, very good goalkeeper and has been for a long, long time. Will it be Shane Ryan and Kerry? Look, I think Shane Ryan is probably... I think Kerry arguably might have the best defence in the championship this year, just given how structured they look throughout the league. Although, you don't have Jason Foley potentially in there, so that could leave some vulnerabilities. I won't go with Sean Patton just because I don't think it's a guarantee. I've predicted Donegal to get to a semi-final, but it's not even a semi-final mightn't be enough for a goalkeeper to get an All-Star. So it's probably between Oren Lynch and Stephen Cluxton, in my opinion. Oren Lynch has been absolutely brilliant so far, but I do think he has a mistake in him. So for that reason, I'm going to go for the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen Cluxton, to pick up yet another All-Star. I think he will be the man to get it. And as I said in my predictions video, him coming back in my opinion, will be a huge difference for Dublin this season in terms of going from a contender to an All-Ireland winner. Look, obviously they are the reigning All-Ireland champions, but in terms of getting over Derry and Kerry in the All-Ireland series, which look most likely will have to happen at some stage for Dublin. I think they will have to get over possibly both of them, but at least one of them. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I think Cluxton will make the key difference, because Comerford, I don't think, had a great game. Comerford has the range on his kickouts, but I think overall, his movement on kickouts maybe isn't there in terms of being quick enough with them. He probably doesn't have the intelligence of Cluxton. And look, Cluxton is one of the all-time greats in Gaelic football, so I don't think there can be any surprises there. Let's move on then to right cornerback. Few options most certainly coming in here. I think Lee Gannon is a good shout from a Dublin perspective. I think, you could also look at Kerry as well. Could someone like a Toig Morley maybe get in here? Or not a Toig Morley, like a Tom O'Sullivan or a Graham O'Sullivan potentially. Toig Morley's obviously in the half back line. But the man I have gone for is a Derry man, and it is Conor McCluskey. He was outstanding last year. He's been very good when he's played so far for Derry this year. Like a brilliant sort of modern day cornerback. He can do it all defensively, but he also adds that bit of a threat going forward as well. Lee Gannon, look, I think is a good show from a Dublin perspective. Lee Gannon did go off injured against Derry though, and as it is sometimes with Gaelic football and GA and everything else, you don't really hear much once a player is injured in terms of when he's coming back. So we don't really know when Lee Gannon will be back. And I do think overall, Conor McCluskey probably is the slightly better player. As of now, look, both players are obviously, I'm not too sure what age Conor McCluskey is in all honesty, but I know Lee Gannon's fairly young enough. But I'll go with McCluskey. Maybe Tom O'Sullivan's a potential option in there as well. But there we go. Plenty of people getting the comments. Tomo says Ethan Rafferty in terms of goalkeeper in the conversation. 2022 good year. No, he absolutely did, in fairness. But yeah, in terms of goalkeeper, I'll go Cluxton and I'll go Conor McCluskey in at right cornerback. The fullback area is another interesting one. You've got certainly a lot of players who could be in the mix here. One player I think who could very well be in the conversation is Mick Fitzsimons of Dublin. But again, how will he be coming back from a long layoff? We don't exactly know. Possibly his last season. Will he still have the same pace, the same levels that he's produced in previous seasons? I think that he will, but I think the sure thing is Chrissy McCaig. I think it really, really is. Look, Jason Foley definitely would have been in the conversation here as well, but he does, he's obviously suffering with a few injury problems right now as well. So I think Chrissy McCaig coming in is the obvious choice there for fullback, in my opinion. Again, you could be looking at a fullback playing for Donegal who's doing well. You could be looking, further around with Tyrone or something of that nature. Obviously, you don't have Ronan McNamee in there this year for Tyrone, so probably, he would have been usually a mention in previous years. But yeah, we'll go with Chrissy McCaig there from a Derry perspective. Left cornerback, there are some options. Graham O'Sullivan, as I said previously, could be a player in this position. But I'm going to go for Owen Merchant. Very good season so far for Dublin this year. Mark David Clifford very, very well in that game in the league. And I think Dublin are a different player when he is on the pitch, in my opinion. He's, again, much like Conor McCluskey, he offers a lot. He probably doesn't offer as much going forward maybe now as like a few years ago. Maybe injuries and everything else have caught up to him a little bit. But he is still a very explosive cornerback. He can play in the half-back line as well. And for someone with his height, like he is such a brilliant defender. And we saw how well he marshalled David Clifford in the league game. Would he pick up Clifford again in the championship this year? Probably not. You'd probably go with someone more experienced to pick him up. But at the same time, yeah, Owen Merchant's been absolutely brilliant. Half-back line then. In at number 5, we have another familiar face in Dublin, and that is James McCarthy. It is worth mentioning as well, look, with the All-Stars, usually the All-Stars go to teams that get to a final, semi-final. So this is kind of done in conjunction ever so slightly with my All-Ireland predictions that came out on Thursday. So probably maybe better off watching that first if you're watching this video for the first time, so you get a bit more of an understanding as to why there are so many Dublin and Derry players in here. But yeah, look, I do think it will be James McCarthy. Look, there's plenty of other options that could maybe go into this position. Garrett McKinless could certainly be one, but he's been in and out through injury all year. There are some question marks over this one again, and it kind of is similar with the chatting about Mick Fitzsimons, like how will McCarthy come back? I suppose you could say the same about Cluxton as well, but will he come back with the same energy, the same pace? Interesting enough, though, we have seen McCarthy. He did actually play against Monaghan. He came off the bench in that game, and then we haven't seen him since, which was a little bit unusual, to be fair, that he came back for that game and then we haven't seen him since. But yeah, I think McCarthy, for what he brings to Dublin, he can play in midfield, play in the half-back line. His energy is his ball carrying ability, I think, is second to none as well. He's such a hard player to dispossess and such a clutch player for Dublin in big, big moments, time and time again. And I think McCarthy for me will be the man. In at centre back, then again, plenty of options in this position. You could have looked for John Small, who's obviously been very, I suppose, integral to Dublin down the years. Toig Morley could be an option in this position. Could also maybe be looking at, like, if an outside shout, Charlie O'Byrnes or something like that, maybe in at number 7, he wouldn't be a bad shout. But look, I think this one has to be Owen McAvoy, who's been absolutely sensational so far for Derry this year. Possibly an outside shout for Footballer of the Year so far. Obviously scored 2 goals and 2 points versus Dublin, 2 absolute crackers as well. He's probably a shoe-in for Footballer or Young Footballer of the Year as it stands right now. So yeah, I think you have to put him in this position. Like, it is interesting. Played mostly in the full back line last season. He's obviously been pushed a little bit further up the pitch by Mickey Hart, and you can see the effects of that. Like, he is that extra runner from deep, and Dublin found it very, very hard to stop him. I don't think Dublin were prepared for him at all in the league final, but there we go. So yeah, go with Owen McAvoy. We'll have our first non-Dublin and non-Derry player. So we have Gavin White coming in here in the half-back line, number 7. Again, like with Kerry, there's multiple players you could probably throw in here for Kerry throughout their defensive line, in terms of, as we mentioned before, Tom O'Sullivan, Graham O'Sullivan, obviously potentially no Jason Foley, but Dylan Casey's look very good. But look, I think Gavin White, when he is fit and available, and that maybe is a big question mark because he has suffered a lot with injuries over the past sort of year or so, but like, Gavin White's a phenomenal player. It was very, very impressive against Derry in the semi-final last season. Offers so much in attack. Like, he is Kerry's own version of Jack McCaffrey. I don't think he's as good as Jack McCaffrey now, but he is their own version. And he's very, very good, isn't he? Offers so much to that Kerry attack, but also in terms of defense as well. Look, there were other players for this position as well. Jack McCaffrey himself maybe could have been an outside shout, but he hasn't played enough for Dublin this year. Didn't even play that much in the championship last year as well. Wasn't really a regular starter. So I think it would be a bit of a bold shout to throw him in there. So there we go. We'll run through some more comments here. Aaron says, can't wait for the championship. Going to be a great year as always. Championship officially kicked off at 3 with London versus Galway. London getting hammered. Yeah, no surprises there. Haven't even checked the score of that yet, to be honest, but there's absolutely no surprises. And as I've said before, it is a little bit mad that we still have them games. Tradition and everything else, fair enough. I get the New York thing, but London should play either Leitrim or Sligo, and then the winner then have Leitrim Sligo after. But look, that's just my opinion. Conversation for another day, and everything else. Right, so before we get into the midfield, I'll run through what my team is so far. So we've got Stephen Cluxton in goal, right cornerback Conor McCluskey, full back line we have Chrissy McCaig, left cornerback is Owen Merchant, right half back is James McCarthy, centre back Owen McAvoy, and left half back is Gavin White. So that's what we have so far. And we'll throw the team up on the screen towards the end as well. I obviously don't want to give away the other players that I've picked so far. So yeah, bear with me. But midfield, I think this is obvious enough for me. Brendan Rodgers has to get in there. He's an absolute shoe-in. Spoiler alert, in my predictions a couple of days ago, I predicted him to win Footballer of the Year. I think he will. I think he's an absolute colossus of a player in midfield. He's such an engine. Like, he's not as tall, and he's probably not as big in terms of size as someone like a Fenton or a Conor Glass, but what he does have is so much explosiveness. He's obviously in the past played in, the half-back line for Derry, the full-back line, if we're going back even longer. But he just offers so much in that midfield. Such a well-rounded player. He can do everything with the ball. He's brilliant at kick passing, hand passing, scoring points, setting things up around him. There's nothing really that he cannot do. And look, we'll say the same for the other man that's partnering him, Brian Fenton. Very often a shoe-in or a contender for Footballer of the Year. I don't think that will change this year. I think he'll be in the conversation as well. Fenton, look, he probably did struggle a little bit in the league final versus Derry, but that's because of what he came up against. You know, he came up against probably the best midfield pairing in the country in Brendan Rodgers and Conor Glass, and you can't dispute that. And, you know, Tom Lahiff probably given a bit more of a free roam in that game, and then then Fenton very much smothered. In the half-back line, we mentioned Conor Glass. There was no way I couldn't leave him out. I know he's obviously not a midfielder, or I know he's not a half-forward, before anyone tries to call me out on it. He's too good to leave out, in my opinion. He's been absolutely outrageous all year for Derry when he's played, and I think he's an absolute shoe-in. He's an absolute shoe-in. We've put him in at number 10, in at right half-forward. Like, he was excellent. Like, his fielding of the ball on kickouts is so impressive as well, and I think that's been well documented really since his AFL days. And yeah, I think he's an absolute shoe-in. Like, even his technique on 45s against Dublin was so rare in terms of going for that side foot. And obviously he missed one or two, but he is such a well-rounded player. And I think when you look at Derry football in general since he's come back, it's no coincidence they've kicked on massively since then. In at centre forward, Sean O'Shea. Again, it's another one that maybe is slightly obvious, but I think Sean O'Shea probably maybe last year didn't have as good as a year in 2022, but I think in 2022, you know, he was off the charts really, and he was certainly a strong contender for Footballer of the Year that year. And look, he's had a little bit of a different role so far this year. He's played in a full forward, which has been a little bit different from Jack O'Connor's perspective. But yeah, like Sean O'Shea, frees, he nails, you know, the majority of them he takes. He's sort of a great supply chain for Mr. David Clifford himself. And of course, when he's on it, points, goals, he can offer absolutely everything. And he is still one of the best forwards in the country. Look, there were other players you could throw in here. Rian O'Neill, I'm sure, might be in the conversation for Armagh. We haven't seen much of him this year, though. Look, he'll be back for Armagh in the Championship, no doubt about that. But I don't think Armagh are going to go too far in the Championship this year. I have a funny feeling they're going to get caught somewhere along the way. So that's why we haven't thrown him in there. Again, like, you could be looking at a Paul Cassidy of Derry. Kieran Kilkenny of Dublin is a player that certainly deserves a shout. Caleb McGonigal maybe of Donegal. But yeah, I think Sean O'Shea, for what he offers to Kerry and what he's brought the last couple of years, I think you have to go with him, in my opinion. Next up then, outside of the first player, and I think the only player outside of the Dublin, Derry, Kerry triangle, Dara Canavan. Look, I don't think it should be lost how good he was in the league. Absolutely unbelievable. I think probably the player of the league, you could argue, maybe alongside Brendan Rodgers or Shane McGuigan, who was phenomenal himself as well. Con O'Callaghan was obviously outstanding in the league, but yeah, I don't think you can dispute Dara Canavan. Like, he was absolutely phenomenal throughout the league, and yeah, I think he's an absolute no-brainer, a shoe-in. It will be interesting to see how far Tyrone actually go in the Championship. Like, I'd be surprised to see them get beyond the quarter-final. I think that's as far as they'll go, in all honesty. Obviously, it depends on draws, who they play, etc., and it depends how those group stages go. But yeah, Dara Canavan is probably one of the most skillful footballers in the country right now. His explosiveness on the ball, in terms of ball carrying as well, the pace that he brings with it. And look, it's obviously in his genes, it's in his genetics from his dad and everything else. So it's probably no surprises when you see what he does on the pitch. So yeah, half forward line then, if we go with that in total. Conor Glass, as I said before, excellent for Derry. I just don't think you can leave him out, and I think it would have been a bit of a travesty leaving him out. So we've put him in there. Sean O'Shea at 11 and Dara Canavan at 12. Now the full forward line. First one up, no surprises, David Clifford. I don't really need to explain too much as to why David Clifford gets in here. I think if I had predicted David Clifford to win an All-Star, I probably should just delete my channel. Do you know, like that? I should just do that. So yeah, look, there's probably some All-Stars in here that are debatable. Or you know, whenever I'm looking back at this later in the year or whatever, there's probably a few of these that you're like, I don't know if he mightn't get one, maybe he should get one, blah blah blah. But this one is completely undisputable, and I don't really need to go into why. Look, he's going to be in the conversation for Footballer of the Year again. Will he win it again 3 years in a row? He could do. You know, he definitely could do. He'll certainly be in the mix, and yeah, no surprises at all that that David Clifford gets in and amongst it. Then in a full forward, again, multiple options, players you could throw in here. You could look at Oisin Gallen of Donegal. You could look at Patrick McBrearty of Donegal. Paul Mannion maybe you could throw in here. But look, it is the man I am going to pick, and unfortunately I don't have an image to throw up on the screen. It's gone missing on me. But it is Conor O'Callaghan. Again, much like Dara Canavan, one of the players of the league. He's really stepped up his game again this year. He reminds you of the Con from a few years ago, sort of 2019, 2020, when he was just absolutely so explosive on the ball. His movement, his turn, and his quick pace, quick feet, and his ability to slot points over the bar in extraordinary circumstances, which we've seen so often from him. The past few years have been interesting from Con. He has had a lot of injury problems. He's been in and out of the team. He's been rested for large parts throughout the league. He probably hasn't been able to get a consistent run of game time under his belt because of injuries and everything else. And I think that has affected his form, his ability. And I think his role in the team's been slightly different than the last few years. He's been more so of a creator rather than a scorer. But look, he's absolutely back to his best. And when he's at his best, there's not many that can contain him. And then last but not least, it is going to be Mr. Shane McGuigan. I mean, there were a few players here that you could have gone for. You know, could have looked towards, as I said before, Patrick McBrearty could have very much been in the conversation. Paul Mannion, maybe Cormac Costello, even as well. Con Basquel, who was absolutely outstanding last year. Problem is with these All Stars is that there's so many great footballers up and down the country. It is so hard to predict. And it's always very contentious, these All-Stars, isn't it? It really, really is. But look, Darren McCurry could have got a mention here as well. Another absolute super footballer. Paddy Clifford, who obviously plays more so around the half-forward line. But again, he's probably a player that's a little bit unlucky to miss out on the side. But look, Shane McGuigan is a no-brainer for me. It's another one, again, that like it's just an obvious player to put in there. He will be the top scorer in the championship. I'm pretty sure of it, and because obviously he takes the frees, and majority of the time he pops them over. And he's just a fantastic, well-rounded, all-rounded footballer. Like, from seeing him twice up close in both Derry and Dublin games, especially in the first game in Celtic Park, like some of the points he kicked in the second half, you were sort of left scratching your head thinking, how on earth has he done that? You know, I didn't even know that was possible. With so little space, he's just able to work something from absolutely nothing. And if Derry are going to end what is 31-year All-Ireland drought, then he's going to be so integral to it. And even if they don't win it, be very, very confident that he gets in there. So that is my All-Star predictions. You'll see them all on the screen there. So Stephen Cluxton in goal, Conor McCluskey, Chrissy McCaig, Owen Merchant, James McCarthy, Owen McAvoy, Gavin White, Brendan Rodgers, Brian Fenton, Conor Glass, Sean O'Shea, Dara Canavan, David Clifford, Con O'Callaghan, Shane McGuigan. Look, in terms of players you would look at who maybe are, look, and obviously these are predictions, so this is just my opinion. This is not a definitive thing that would happen, but look, players that could very well get All-Stars that I haven't predicted. Paddy Clifford, probably one I really sort of thought, you know, he would have went in instead of Glass. There's no doubt about that, but I just don't think you can leave out Conor Glass. And I know you've got three midfielders in that team, but I think Conor Glass is too good. He's too good to leave out, in my opinion. And then you're looking at Kieran Kilkenny's another massive player. Cormac Costello's such a huge player. There are so many big players that that are unfortunate to leave out. Mick Fitzsimons maybe as well. Tom O'Sullivan. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But look, they are my All-Star predictions. I'd be curious to know if any of you lads have any predictions for All-Stars and everything else. Obviously, we'll know by the end of the championship more or less. Like, we'll have an idea as to who will get All-Stars, but we won't actually know until December. So maybe a bit of a late reaction video to this one later in the year. But yeah, look, I'll be curious to know your opinions, your thoughts. Obviously, there'll be plenty more content coming out this weekend and beyond, with plenty of games obviously happening across the country in the championship. Cavan Monaghan tomorrow poses to be probably game of the weekend, you'd imagine. So yeah, anyone who's tuned in, if you could hit the like button and subscribe. My name is Aaron, and I'll speak to you all later.